In this video, before we discussed cerebral genes and what they were, in this video I want to show you what I mean by human speciation. Because wherever you have genes and wherever you have mutations, i.e. changes in those genes, you should expect to have speciation, even if it starts slowly and then it becomes bigger and actually have different species of plants or animals. But because cerebral genes are accelerated, super accelerated, you should expect speciation also to occur at a very fast rate. Now, species, first of all, let me explain what I think speciation is so that we share the same vocabulary. Species are distinct parts for the blind watchmaker to bang together and make his watch. You have to see the video earlier on when I said how the blind watchmaker makes his watch. And so you need parts to bring together, like gears, like winders, like the glass, like the hand, the second hand, etc., for parts for a watch, to assemble them by banging them together. And therefore, when I say banging them together, I mean things like predation, parasitosis, infections, etc. They're all blind searches for symbiosis because there is no other way for them to come together. So you understand what speciation is. Speciation is basically changes in the gene congregation through mutation, and then slowly those changes add up and a thing becomes a different species to what it was, to the common ancestor of the two. So what is the most important aspect of speciation? Well, first of all, you have to have mutations, and more importantly, the one-way valve. Please remember this, because this will become very, very important as we discuss it, especially in social evolution later, the fact that we don't have a one-way valve, and that's why we keep suffering. But here, as you can see, you must have a one-way valve. And what that means is that eventually you get species in such a way that there's no sexual contact with them possible anymore. So sexual segregation is a very important way, or a one-way valve, to stop regression back to the common ancestor. So if you want to maintain speciation, you have to maintain sexual segregation. Please remember this, because this will come important later as a key feature of social segregation. Non-viable interactions. This is a liger. I believe it's a combination of a tiger and a lion. This is a zorse, a horse and a zebra. This is an ass, which is a donkey and a horse. They're all basically dead end, DNA dead ends. They cannot produce viable offspring. So this is not what DNA wants. These are a waste of time. These are obviously done by humans. In reality, they probably wouldn't happen. But the main thing that DNA looks for is to have external congregations of genes, not internal ones, not mutations. Those are too slow. Yes, it goes with the mutations, but ideally it would like to bang two pieces together symbiotically, and out of that will come something that is completely and truly unbelievable in terms of complexity, and more importantly in terms of DNA survival, like the cell here, for example, where the chloroplast bacteria was swallowed by another one. I've already mentioned this in an earlier video. Or the mitochondria being swallowed by another bacteria, and as a result you get eukaryotic cells. So that kind of congregation is what it's really looking forward when the blind watchmaker is banging bits together. So why the one-way valve? Why do we need this? It prevents regression from the eunomic path once it's found. What do I mean by eunomic path? Whatever path it is that is viable, that can survive its surrounding best, once an organism has found it, it does two things. One, it doesn't really want to go back to the previous version, which was less suitable to its environment. And secondly, it wants to maintain that path as far as possible to see if it can refine itself even more to fit that environment better. This is a silly example, but it's one that actually makes my point. This has absolutely no survival advantage in the sense of it versus the environment, or it versus its predators, because as you can see, it's very cumbersome, it's heavy, it's a waste of energy and everything else. But because it exists there must be a reason for it. And of course, the reason for this ornamental DNA mutation is sexual selection. It means that the females prefer sheep with the longer horns. But this actually also, I wanted to explain what I meant by this double acceleration towards the eunomic path, or maintaining the eunomic path, which means the right path or the good path. So basically, first, an animal is mutated, which will have slightly bigger horns than the other ones in the herd, and the females prefer that animal. And what they do then is they mate, and as a result of this, they will either get a female offspring or a male offspring. The male offspring might have slightly bigger horns because it came from a big-horned father. So further mutations along that path might occur, and of course they will be selected again by the female, because even if they produce a female, that female comes from a mother that preferred long horns, so she might prefer longer horns even more. So as you can see, this is from both ends, male and female driven, and therefore it accelerates and it becomes this monstrosity here, which is a major problem for it, both in terms of surviving carrying this thing around, and also people going around trying to mount its head on a wall because apparently it looks really good. If we were to go back and recap, my point was this, that we've discussed this before, what cerebral genes are and what really a human is. If we recap, we are genetic orphans. Our genes are totally let us down. We cannot survive in nature. We have nothing. We have no claws, we have no wings, we have no teeth, we can't breathe in the water, we can't run fast, we have no defensive and offensive genes. We would perish in seconds. We are even peeled quite nicely, no hair, no thick skin. It's like a beef burger just sitting there waiting to be consumed. So we shouldn't be here. That was the point. So why are we here? The reason why we're here, and please remember this, is not because of our genes within our DNA. The reason why we're here is because of our cerebral genes. That's the important thing. We have compensated for those shortfalls in genes with our thought genes. And these thoughts are, the making of a sword compensates for no teeth, no claws. We can make cars, we can make other means of transport that will outrun a cheetah. We can breathe underwater, we can fly in the skies, we can do all manner of things at will. And this is very important. We can literally shape shift. That is something that only gods can do. So okay, not as individuals, please remember that. I said that before in the last video, as humanity, the new organism within DNA. But still, it is available for us individuals. I mean, you drive a car, you didn't make it, you go on holiday on a jet, you had nothing to do with making it. So if I was to ask you, given this background I just gave you about cerebral genes and the normal genes, and now the fact that we are genetic orphans, what would you say? What really is a human? I mean, the answer should be obvious. A human, and this we go back to Socrates, you can either look at it in two different ways. Either a human is an accelerated animal, i.e. we use our intelligence to serve our genes within our DNA, which would basically we follow our instincts because that's what those genes want, and we become nothing but flying pigs, accelerated animals, an accelerated pig. Or we understand what we are, that we are not our genes. Those genes, obviously we have to have some genes, otherwise we wouldn't exist here, but we are really our thoughts. It's our brains, it's what we believe, our cerebral genes that matter. And here's the thing that you should think about and remember, and hopefully you'll agree with me. We are at a place now where the mutations in our genes, in our DNA, mean nothing. They're far too slow. They will make no difference. It is our thought genes that will either kill us or save us in the future. We will not mutate in such a way that we will suddenly understand, for example, the dangers of atomic weapons, if they are dangerous, because I'm not saying they are. It's debatable because it's just a tool. What we do with it is the problem. So the main thing here is that our genetic mutations mean nothing. I've shown you this before. In the cerebral genes, we can do whatever we like, almost, at least in theory now anyway, and it's getting faster and faster. To our normal genes, we can compensate them through making arms and legs for ourselves and all manner of things, and through medicines and so on. So and we go back to this, the unexamined life is not a human life. So basically, if we don't examine it, we're just flying accelerated pigs, or are we these things that can change the world or change our environment with our thoughts? So here is the thing that you have to understand. What I'm trying to say is please don't confuse racism with human speciation. Now, if you're very delicate, if you're woke, then you will be horrified at what I'm suggesting here, because you say, well, how can humans be different species? Well, look at the genes. You have to see this properly. Then if you disagree with it, by all means disagree with me, but you must see what I mean first. Racism implies that there is something fundamentally different about our genes. In other words, our DNA, which is nonsense. That's for boneheads, people who don't read, people who don't understand anything. Our genes within Homo sapien groups are almost identical. I mean, the tiny little differences are nothing other than, a little bit of long hair, a bit of short hair, funny nose, not funny nose, etc. They mean absolutely nothing. So I will discuss racism in the next one because, as I said, that's a choice. It is not a reality. We choose to believe that some people are subhumans because we believe that their genes are different. That's why they say, well, don't go around marrying them and keep sexual segregation, which is complete nonsense. But speciation of humans based on their thought genes is very, very real. It's very dangerous, and it should be understood by everybody, because although it's easy for us to become the same species by choosing the same thoughts for our own benefit and then combine symbiotically, the tendency seems to be that we want to diverge. We want to diverge that innate drive in evolution to constantly come up with new parts for the watchmaker. It's something that is always there, and it's always gravitational, and it takes us away. So please pay attention to this. I mean, look at this is Charles Darwin, and this is just a chimpanzee. The difference between the genes of these two is only 4 to 5%. That's you and me as well. The genes different between a chimp and us, which is the closest of our kind of kin in the animal kingdom, is only 4 to 5% in our DNA. Yet look at the difference in terms of the performance, and in terms of physical appearance, and in terms of culture, and in terms of life. But now if you actually go on later and you look at the difference between people's thoughts who live side by side, it will be significantly more different than that. So you have to understand that if your thoughts collectively or as a single person are that different to someone else's thoughts, then you are a different species of human being based on your cerebral genes. And cerebral genes are very rare. I hope you can see it, because that's where our lives are affected by. Not our normal genes, but our cerebral genes. So genetic differences and what that means. Now you know this, or you should know this, that when the genes are identical and they're harmonious, there's sexual contact. The genes pass and offsprings are produced, and everybody lives happily ever after in a perfectly harmonious single community. When the genes are not the same, then you either get predation or you get competition. In either case, it never works in any other way, and is 99.999% destructive. That interaction of genes being very different with animals that live side by side and share the same resources becomes a serious problem, because it is never, there is no precedence for it in nature that they will be symbiotic, it will be happy. Yeah, maybe at times when there's plenty of prey, but when the chicken popcorn runs out or the donuts run out, then all hell breaks loose. And the reason being because it's blind. These interactions are blind and irresistible, and so when we have genetic differences, we have to watch out for them, because they are not what you think or wish that they might be. So rainbows and unicorns are the idiotic interpretation of genetic differences by the woke. Woke, by the way, I think of these people who believe they're so evolved more than everybody else that they can feel so much pain and suffering that no one else can feel, which is a load of rubbish, because they just want attention. But anyway, that's for you to decide. But this is what they believe, that people of different thoughts, completely different species of humans, if you like, can live side by side, and somehow out of those differences we don't get competition, we don't get power struggles, we don't get destruction, which is, by the way, just look around you. I mean, if you look at Europe now, I personally believe that the Muslims here are going to be the new Jews. The Holocaust itself is a classic and a very clear example, a recent example. By the way, genocides have happened throughout history. The list is endless, but it's a classic and amazing example, clear example of multiculturalist rainbow societies. It never works. It works for a while until you have problems, and then the blame starts, dehumanization starts, and then the genocide starts. But anyway, this is not what this is what the woke believes that will happen if you have people of different cerebral genes together. And I believe this is the woke logic. They don't think. The woke believe that the emotional value trumps logic. Whatever is fluffy, whatever you state as a statement that sounds cooperative, or it sounds altruistic and all that rather rubbish, they think must be true, and anything else they don't want to read, they don't want to look at history, they don't understand history, they just constantly, or they don't understand. I mean, as you can see, if you at the end think that I may have a point where I'm talking about evolution, is that they completely, even the experts don't understand the dangers of different species living together, sharing the same resources. So the woke mentality is a bit like being bitten by a black mamba here, and then pretending he was just giving you a kiss and making yourself a cup of tea and just sitting there rather than going and getting medical advice very quickly. So the end is obvious. If we keep denying that speciation is real, if we keep denying that things are happening in society, and the people who are the social architects are unaware of this, then we are going to have serious problems over and over again. And throughout history, we have had these cyclical problems. So anyway, the reality of genetic differences where they are present between congregations of genes, whether they be cerebral or normal genes, is always either going to be competition or is going to be predation, because there is no other option. There is absolutely no other option, because if it wasn't, then it wouldn't be a genetic difference. It would be the same genes, and then you have the same species. So then it's a completely different ball game. They can then live in symbiosis rather than blaming each other. So this is the reality of genetic differences. What's the evidence for speciations in human? Just look around you. You should be able to see this quite clearly. First of all, this has existed for a very long time. In fact, from the time that human beings settled down, maybe even before, as hunter-gatherers. We have economic classifications. What is a worker if not a herbivore? What is a manager if not a predator? And owners and shareholders, who are they if not predators? The relationship economically between different segments of human population are entirely based on the food chain. If you don't see it, then okay, maybe I'm wrong, but just look around. It's exactly the same. There are ethnic labelings. What is an African American? What is a Latin American? What is an Asian American? Why is there a need for this? African, Latin, or Asian? Why do we need to keep these labels? Why are they not just Americans? Well, they are Americans when America goes to probably fight or invade someone else, like the Russians. All of these people will suddenly become Americans. But if they have no enemies, they will then fall apart under these segregations. And every single one of them, whether it's the Asians, the Latin, the African, and everybody else, will want this label and want to pursue this labeling and will want to exaggerate the differences. For what reason? Because everybody wants power. We go back to Nietzsche. The will to power is inherent in all systems. You have religious labeling. What is Jewish British? What is Muslim British? What is Christian British? All of these labels mean absolutely nothing but segregation of humans into different species of humans. They're all different species of humans living side by side, sharing the same resources and all vying for maximization of their power base. And everything will be fine until the chicken, popcorn and donuts run out. Then you have a problem where everybody will blame everybody else, and guess who wins? Obviously the Christian British, because they're in the great majority. And these are the new problems in Europe that will have to answer for all of the questions and all of the frustration that's building up, because they're constantly different and becoming even more different. You have intellectual labeling. What is a professor? What is a doctor? What's a cleaning lady? What's a janitor? What's a bin connector? You can see it's all hierarchical. Already within this, there is a element, a labeling of food chain going down the line. So responsibility labeling, for example. What is a spiritual leader? What is a leader? What is the first lady? What does that mean? Well, the first lady comes from the alpha dog mentality about society. What is a prime minister? Look at the word prime, Mr. Alpha Dog. So it's all to do with speciation within cerebral genes that you can see. Why is that? Because there is something that you have to understand about evolution, and that's the inevitability of predation or speciation. Speciation is inevitable because there is constant change, both in the environment that drives it and both within the mutation of the DNA of the animal. There are lots of people that believe that if we could kill all the predators because they think they are the problem, and we could have just lovely little peace-loving doves, the world would be a wonderful place. But what they don't understand is if you have these doves, very, very quickly there will be dove hawks, because speciation and the drive to predation is inherent in evolution. You cannot get away with it. And this is not something that nature can help, but it is something that we can help, because our differences are entirely cerebral genes, where our thoughts are what makes us different, not our DNA. So if you look all around you, what do you really see? Do you not see this guy here, the big tough guy, some guy that wants to be a politician that's ruling your world and pushing you around, the managers, the shareholders, the millionaires and billionaires who basically are getting involved in the entire world's population and how they must behave simply because they have money. For some reason, that money, the power that they have, automatically bestows on them sagacity and wisdom, which is insane. But we believe it and they believe it themselves. Well, why wouldn't they believe it? If you start worshipping these people, then just because they were lucky enough to become millionaires, why wouldn't they believe they're absolutely right? You have other species of humans. I just put these pictures just to give you an idea. I mean, just to make a point. The doggy humans, the loyal human, the hard-working human who loves you, the soldier, the policeman, the nurse, that kind of one. Here you got the parasite, the snake human, the drug dealer, the thief, the murderer, the rapist. All of these are different species of human beings living side by side, because the new organism, remember, the new organism is humanity as a whole, not you as an individual. And so humanity is infested with all of these kinds of species of humans, just in the same way that your body has different species of cells. Your cell in your liver is a different species to the cell in your heart, to your colon, to your kidney, etc., etc. And this is, the donkey guy, the poor truck driver, the beast of burden who does all the farmer, the laborer, the guy working in a factory. What are wars really? If you look at wars, they're nothing other than two things. They're either the prey fighting back, the predators, because they've had enough, like the buffalo charging the lions to save themselves because they're constantly being eaten. They are predators fighting for territory. The Second and First World Wars are nothing other than the Europeans trying to fight each other on the European soil for what they were doing all around the world, dividing the world and colonizing them and exploiting them. Or they prey themselves, once they get power hungry and get power, fighting each other for promotion. The French Revolution and all the bloodthirst that went on there, the Bolshevik Revolution and all the bloodthirst that went on there, if you look at it, is nothing other than the workers taking over and then becoming inevitably the predators, because there is no other way. There is no way you're going to get workers going up through this channel, by the way, because it's violence and bloodthirst, and then becoming somehow the lovers of workers and wanting to form harmonious societies. Every time you take this path to power, it will degrade inevitably into predation. The new predator will emerge. Nobody could say that Stalin loved workers. That's insane. He hated them and he killed them by the tens of millions. So if we look at this speciation within human beings, because like I said to you, again I stress, racism is nonsense. It's for boneheads, because it's not real. But speciation of humans is very real, and you should be able to see it all around you very, very clearly. We constantly go on about nobility for our causes, but ultimately there is noble causes for wars and conflict. This is just like the Bible leading the conquistadors in Southern America. They were going there apparently to save the lives of those poor Indians, but in reality they wanted their gold, their land. They wanted to turn them into slaves, rape their women, and do whatever the hell they wanted, which is great. If you got the power, that is the reason why you should have power. If you have power and you can't go around raping people, what's the point? So there are no noble reasons for wars. We tell ourselves this to hide who we really are. And as you can see quite clearly later when we discuss, if you watch it, Nietzsche's philosophy, that we'll see very clearly who we really are. And that's why it's so difficult for people to, especially in the modern woke world, to understand or look at Nietzsche, because we're just addicts and psychopaths. Now, look at, when I said to you before there was the chimp and Charles Darwin, the difference between those two guys was only 4%. The difference between these people, cerebral genes, is exactly the opposite of one another. We're not talking about 4 or 5% difference. In other words, how long should the skirt be? How long should the hair be? Should we prostitute our children all the time, or not? The answer is completely different. We're going to cover everybody here, and these guys can go and practice, becoming sperm cups. So it's a very, very different mentality. I'm not making value judgment. That is your business. But look at the difference in speciation. These people would rather kill their daughters and sons for marrying any of those. Think about it for a minute. Honor killing. What the hell is that? If that's not that thing. And these guys, I'm not sure they're very happy if one of their sons and daughters married into one of these guys. It wouldn't work in any way. Most of them, it never happens. Sexual segregation between species. Remember what I said before? You can see it in your society. Whenever you have fundamentally a sexual segregation, you have two species. Make no mistake. If there is sexual segregation between people, that means there are two different species who want to remain there. That's exactly what the Jews did all over the world, despite the historic problems. I'm not picking on Jews. They're just one example that everybody understands now. But always maintaining their sexual segregation and being Jews and being able to be identified easily. And if you look at these guys, identifying them is going to be very, very easy in the future. So just a small point here, in case you think that these guys are actually female liberation, women that achieve the pinnacle of freedom, whether it's these guys or not. Well, you'd be very wrong, because they're both male driven. This and that is not what women really want. The reason I say that, I'm not some genius who knows how women think, but if you look at the path, the logical path of evolution, women are not here. Women did not evolve to be sperm cups, to give it away free of charge. Women do not give sex away for just anybody. The alpha male, if you look at the alpha mentality of it, they give it away for status, for security, for their children, for the investment in their children, and I guess the women call it love, but for men, they just kind of spread it about willy-nilly. So this idea of women becoming sexually promiscuous and giving it away free of charge is a man's dream. There isn't a single man on the planet who doesn't want women to just go bananas and have sex whenever they want without even asking their name. So if you think that these guys have been suppressed and held back by males, then I'm afraid that too. So they're both male driven, make no mistake. Anyway, the main thing is about our societies for a very long time, especially in Europe, with what's been happening recently with immense migrations and the problems that it creates, and the lack of ever there being a conscious effort or a conscious plan even to integrate people, because there's never been one. They don't even know what to do with the whole idea of multiculturalism and making it easy for people to be segregated by providing them with translators, because you don't even have to speak the English or German or something. You can ask for a translator. Just take a moment and savor the insanity of this. If you cannot even communicate, what the hell is happening here? How can you be the same species? How can you exchange thoughts with one another if you can't even speak the language? So inshallah, all is be fine is not going to work out. This is a time bomb that's perpetrated by amateur politicians, people who want to be popular, who want their 4 years and want a place in history, but absolutely no idea of what they're talking about, because they understand nothing. They've just been brought up through the elite education system where they came out of it and for some reason they believe they must be right because they made it through that system. But anyway, this is something for Socionomy, the 4th book in the series, if we ever come to that and you want to read it. But for the time being, what I was trying to say is that cerebral genes are very real. Human speciation is very real. And if it is a time bomb, then it will explode when the detonator goes. And the detonator is the abundance of resources. While we have abundance of resources, you can force people, you can tolerate, if you know what I mean, each other, tolerate each other's religion, tolerate each other's culture, etc. But when that goes, we don't look for solutions anymore. We are going to go and blame each other and going to slaughter each other. And there's a very good reason for that. And you will see that in racism in the next one, when I talk about the sacrificial population in evolution. It exists in every population, and especially in human population. A sacrificial population is a very important concept that you need to understand. Anyway, if you need a complete and systematic explanation of the points raised here, please get this book, number 2, Bionomy, the series of 4. It's completely free. I want nothing from you. My motive really is to just question our fundamental beliefs, but not just question them by providing empty, hopefully not empty opinions, but to give you the full justification, because evolution, Darwin, is not just a story that applies to animals and worms and the Serengeti. The most important aspect of Darwin is our lives. We are very much a part of it, because we are now accelerated and our genes are accelerated. And on the one hand, we can do amazing things, but on the other hand, we can also be extremely destructive if we don't get it right. So, thanks.